Good evening. Welcome to you. So beautiful to be with you. Apologize to keep you waiting a couple minutes there. The next retreat is 2 weeks away, May 12th through the 14th, 2023. If you're seeing this on YouTube, we'd love to have you join us. It's going to be a powerful opportunity to awaken together. Yeah. And then after that, the next retreat will be an in-person retreat, July 16th through the 21st at Kripalu in Massachusetts. Yeah. When I was reflecting on retreat is such a wonderful opportunity, such a sacred opportunity where this immense transmission comes and it's with you and it could begin to stabilize within your consciousness. The energies of awakening are ripe during retreat. Ripe, powerful, radiant. And it's unlike any other type of experience here on planet Earth. Is basically we are saying, I'm going to step out of the collective stream, and the stream of the collective unconscious, and step into the very flow of life itself, the hugeness of life. And so I'd invite you to join me in that stream right now in this moment. As you close your eyes and you feel into your body, you may notice at first aches and pains or old thoughts like thoughts of the past, or little arguments with life, little arguments with your partner, past. But in this space of satsang, can we put it all down and arrive here fully and completely? Put it all down and arrive here fully and completely. When you put everything down, one of the first things you may notice is the silence. This quiet spaciousness. Which is the very fabric of your consciousness. And so will you join me in just stepping back into this and enjoying some of the relief, putting down the human mind, the personality, allowing your body, your psyche to be bathed in silence. And if there are tensions, invite them to relax, to let go, to melt away in this space of silence. Inviting whatever is here that is held tightly or tensely, can you invite it to empty, to flow, to unravel. And of course, if you are a kundalini person and you want to just invite some of that energy to flow into this spaciousness, it's where Shakti, Kundalini Shakti, flows into the space of Shiva. This immense silence, the unborn nature, the unmanifest. So we're inviting whatever it is that's here to flow, to empty, to release. And if you're someone who has a busy mind, Some of us struggle with negativity or OCD type of thinking, or heavy thoughts, attachment, desirous thoughts, whatever they may be. Just see if you can step back away from that. Most of those thoughts live up in the front of the forehead. And can you take a deep breath and step back, taking the backward step. And joining me in being the spaciousness, being the silence. So if you take a couple more deep, full breaths, just getting in touch. The space in which the sound of my voice arises. And I invite you to notice that this space is not something that we are creating. Rather, if you can join me in looking right now, you may notice that space is always here. Space is always here. There's space for kriyas to flow and to jump. There's space for kundalini to flow. There's actually space for all kinds of wild thoughts and images and fantasies. But instead of focusing on the contents, will you join me in the recognition that the context is always here. Space, peace, emptiness is always here. Can you breathe that in? You merge into what is always already present. And can you enjoy quiet sanity? Of this peace, of this spaciousness. As we're just drinking this in, and then if you allow, invite awareness to descend down to the space of the heart. You notice this quiet radiance, gentle sense of love and innocence. The purity. Now for some of you, you may notice heaviness or distorted emotions, or grasping or clinging. I want to invite you to feel that, to validate that, to acknowledge that if that's there. To see if you can find what is beyond that. Quiet love. An immense compassion. A willingness to forgive and to let go and to release. And as you begin to breathe into the space of the heart, you may notice this space waking up, the gentle sense of love and compassion. This space isn't just empty and dead. It is radiant, full of light. So breathing here, feeling what's here. welcoming the heart, the goodness of the heart, the radiance of the heart. Fully awaken in the here and now, shining its light into the space of the mind, shining its love down to the belly, pelvis, the hips, the legs, the feet, the arms, the hands. And as you feel into the legs and the feet, you may notice a quiet strength there, quiet foundational stability. So breathing a little more deeply to your lower belly, your lower hara. Just feeling almost like a quiet sense of strength here, strength of Buddha nature. Quiet yet powerful sanity. So just feeling your hara becoming rooted down through the legs into the earth itself. Breathing here for some time. And if you like, you can open your eyes. And if you like, you can keep them closed, whatever is true for you. Whatever is true for you. I see there's a couple new faces in the room, so I'd like to personally welcome you. So lovely to have you. Yeah, so lovely to have you. And for the new folks in the room, well, maybe everyone would do this, but maybe the new folks will do this first. You just type in the chat where you're from. See what we're working with here. Get a sense of who's showing up. And while y'all are doing that, topic I'd like to speak about tonight. Let's see here. Perth, Australia, Fort Collins, Colorado. Yeah. Well, who else? Come on. Say hi. Don't be shy. Australia, that's a place I've never been. Not yet. Here, there's some beautiful beaches there. Okay. So, Canada, Asheville, North Carolina. Y'all don't need to be so shy. Just type it in there. The thing I'd like to speak about today is developing spiritual authority. Developing your spiritual authority is another word for developing your spiritual power. And then also developing a sense of spiritual autonomy. We'll speak a little bit about how these are different. We have Asheville, North Carolina, Ashland, Oregon. My dyslexic self always gets those two confused. Northern California, which I will be in Northern California in a month or so. Southern California. California is just such a beautiful place. There's too many people though. Apple Valley, Minnesota. How wonderful. Would it be okay? Tyler writes, would it be okay to spend time gardening during a retreat? Of course. gardening on a retreat is very grounding, very grounding. And so, on the retreat, maybe I'll just talk about that just for a moment. On the upcoming retreat, we'll have 3 periods of meetings throughout the day. And look, I know people are in all over the world in different time zones. The whole thing will be recorded. And I do my best to upload those during the retreat, but I can't always promise that. But you just show up and you do your best. If it's in the middle of the night, you don't need to come. But if you do, a lot of people do. And it makes me smile. But, the thing is we're just setting this intention to show up, to meet together, to meditate, to step into the truth, and to spend some time in silence. But if you have little kids, it's an online retreat. If you have, a job, if you have a garden, garden's great. If you want to go on some hikes in the breaks, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. So just come and you do your best. Like whatever it is, we're staying inward. We're staying with our experience. But life happens. Life happens in this modern age. Now, in the in-person retreat, we have a pretty strict schedule. We stick to that. We're not engaged in life. But in the online retreats, you just do your best to be fully present with the teachings, with your experience. The more you give yourself to the retreat, the more powerful it will be. But there's things that are more supportive, like hiking, walking, silently, gardening, of course, beautiful. Okay, now everyone's writing it. Southern California, a couple from Southern California. Salt Springs Island, British Columbia, magical place. I love BC. It's so wonderful up there. Bavaria, south of Germany. Raleigh, North Carolina, Michigan, Denver, Pennsylvania. All right. Okay. That's a good spread. So tonight's topic, I'd like to speak about us having spiritual authority. And just for fun, I hate dictionary definitions, but just for fun, I clicked on it. Authority is, defined as the power or right to give orders, to make decisions, and to enforce obedience. That sounds terrible. The way I like to speak about spiritual authority is, do you, the one who is awake within you, do you choose how to live your life? Or does your mood tell you how you're going to live your life? Does your hormones tell you how you're going to live your life? Do your parents, that's a fun one, tell you how you're going to live your life, how you should live your life? So who has authority within your consciousness? Who has authority over your consciousness? So on the spiritual path, these are great questions. Now, some people, if we are completely asleep on the spiritual path, we may think that we have authority. But really what has authority is our collective consciousness, our collective unconsciousness. Like I grew up as a kid in a military family. And as a little boy, I loved tanks and guns and fighter jets and these types of things. And I'm not sure why, when I became conscious, do I really like tanks when I become conscious? Not so much, not so much. Like they're not, they're weapons of destruction. They're killing machines. Like I don't get excited about tanks anymore. But as a little boy, because I grew up in this family and I was bred, my older brother loved tanks, my father, and we used to go on vacations to military bases. Like, how silly is that? And we'd climb around on the tanks, the old tanks that they'd leave out the front of the base. And as a little kid, I like being outside. I like being in nature. I like to climb on things. I like things that were big, as you're a little boy. But when I investigate, like my consciousness, it's like, do I have authority over myself? Do I know what I like? Do I know what I love? Do I know what is true for me? Or are the things that are true for me, were they given to me by my culture? Like our culture here in the United States is a culture that values success, it values fame, values having lots of money in a big house and sports car or whatever. I don't really value those things. And so those things, because I don't listen to the values of my culture, those things do not have authority over me. They don't have power over me. My parents, I love my parents, but they saw quite, after about the age of 11, they realized that they weren't going to have much power or authority over, their son, Craig. And they tried, and they tried their best. They didn't have terrible values in any way, but I just had different values than they did. And because there was something within me, as a kid that was awake, I chose to walk in the direction of my truth. And when you choose to walk in the direction of your truth, you start to have autonomy over yourself. And so I'll look at the definition of autonomy right now. The right or condition of self-government. It's basically I make my own choices. I govern myself. But the only way we can govern ourselves, the only way we can have authority, true authority, spiritual authority, if we listen, is if we listen to the voice of our heart. If we know the truth of our hara, the truth of our being. And that's one voice. The voice of our heart, the voice of the hara, one voice. Comes in different flavors though. One voice. And so it's a great question. Like, does anything have power over you? Now I'm going to say something silly. I'm going to confess here. The reason I was 4 minutes late to satsang tonight is because there was something that had power over me. The thing that had power over me was the sunshine and my blood sugar. And so, we want to honor our human self, take care of our human self. But, I saw this, I was having this kind of moment in history. So I'm kind of building a shed, a barn, like in my backyard. And I was framing up the roof today. When you frame a roof in Colorado, you're going to be in the hot sun. We're in what's called a high desert. So today it was like 80 degrees and I'm at about 7,000 feet. And there's no humidity in the air here and not much atmosphere. And so that sun was cooking. And when it cooks, our brain, our body, we tend to lose a lot of blood sugar. And so it's important to look, like when you look at your life, like what is it that has power and authority over you? Of course, we're all human. We need to eat. We need to manage our blood sugar. But to what degree? What degree does your blood sugar have power over you? Like some people, Some people absolutely lose their mind when their blood sugar drops. They become the meanest, nastiest people, the most irritable people, the most insensitive people. They'll knock you out of the way, if they need to, get some blood sugar in them. And then with hormones, I asked that question in the beginning, do your hormones, and whether our hormones are menopause or, the monthly menses, or the hormones are the hormones of attraction and desire. And we have all kinds of hormones, within our body. When our body gets off, if our body has adrenal fatigue, that's a common symptom on the path of kundalini awakening. Are we going to allow the adrenals to rule us? Or do we have some authority over our body? Do we have authority over our blood sugar? Or do we have some degree of authority? Very little degree or a high degree? How do you do on the path if you miss an hour of sleep? If you miss a whole night of sleep? Do you still have the authority to function, the power to function in a sane way? If someone cuts you off in traffic, if someone calls you a name, if someone says, "Who do you think you are? You're a fraud." You're a fraud. You think you're spiritually awake, but you're a fraud. Do you have the authority, the autonomy to stand in the truth? Do you have the authority over your own emotion, your own emotional reactions? And to what degree? To what degree? Many of us, we might have a big experience of awakening. And then as soon as we are in relationship with another human being, we become completely codependent. We get lost in the other person's emotions or projections. We get lost in our emotions or our desires or our projections. And so in relationship to your children, to your boss, to your husband, wife, or partner, do you lose yourself? Or are you able to stay rooted in the truth? Rooted in a place of love? I can admit the last couple of weeks at my house have been really hard. I've had sick kids, like I've been sick, and my daughter got really sick, and my wife got really sick, and it's just like, it's hard. It's hard to stay awake, to stay conscious, to respond with love and patience when you can't breathe, when everyone's sick, when we've lost all this sleep. And sometimes having spiritual authority and spiritual autonomy means I'm going to allow them to do them. Like if they're having a fit, if they want to take it out on me, I want to just allow them to be who and what they are, allow them to be sick, allow them to struggle. And sometimes from a place of compassion, we can say that same thing about ourselves. I'm really sick. I'm going to allow myself just to sleep in today. I'm going to allow myself to rest. I'm going to give my body what it needs. What it needs. I'm going to let it complain a little bit. But I'm doing this from a place of love. Now that's a slippery slope. If you let the ego have the steering wheel of your life. Sometimes the body needs to whine a little bit. It needs to moan. It needs to be groggy. But are you choosing that? Are you allowing it from a place of consciousness? Or is it just a thing of reactivity? Now, many people teach that in the world of spiritual awakening, when one wakes up, one's every single thought, word, action, behavior is in alignment with the highest truth. And while that makes for a great teaching, a great myth, being human is a little bit more messy, a little bit more complicated. But ultimately, the question is who is running your life? Who is it that's living your life? Who is it that's in charge of your life? Is it the awake you? Is it the semi-awake you? I think there was a movie once. I didn't see it, but Will Ferrell, he was on a basketball team. It was called Semi-Pro, and it wasn't quite a professional team, And so where are we at on the spiritual path? Are we fully awake and living with a great deal of spiritual authority and autonomy? Are we semi-awake? Are we completely asleep at the wheel? Are we completely asleep at the wheel? And, if we find ourselves completely asleep at the wheel, if we notice it, if we have a moment of awakening to say, oh, look, I'm totally asleep here. I'm totally asleep. Like, that's a great moment of clarity. When you see that, and then you gain your authority, you gain your autonomy. When you choose in that moment to step into the truth. When you choose in that moment to do that which is higher. When you choose in that moment to forgive yourself, to forgive another, you choose to let go. Sometimes we're walking on the path, and again, like, we're very conscious, very awake. And then God challenges us by bringing forth, or the kundalini brings forth, some level of unconsciousness from within us. And in that moment, what is it that you do? Do you give in to the unconsciousness? Or do you step into the truth? Do you step into your power? Do you step into your heart and meet your experience with love? What do you do? What do you do in that moment? And so these are good questions. Good questions. Do you have power over your own thinking mind? Most people on planet Earth, they think they are their thoughts. If you ever sit down in meditation, you see thoughts just come and thoughts go. And if you're able to step back, you may see that these thoughts don't even belong to you. These thoughts are just a program of pain, a program of confusion, a program of your Enneagram type, a program of your astrology, program of your culture. One of the things within this culture that I'm a big fan of is the freedom of speech, freedom of religion. That's one of the things, like some people, they get into nationalism and this type of thing. And then some people, a lot of spiritual people, have like anti-nationalism. They have to hate their country, hate the government, hate all the people. And so I'm not going to swing into either. I'm going to take what is good. Take what is good. And see the things that are good, of course, are going to be in alignment with the values of my heart. I believe in free speech. I believe freedom of religion. believe that people should be able to live and pursue the life they want to live. And see, these are values in alignment with freedom. With freedom. But you're not going to find me, waving, an American flag on the 4th of July. Like, someone gives me one at a parade, I might wave it, but it's not going to be like I'm going to go out to the store and say my country first and everyone else last. Because that doesn't feel as if it's the truth for me. The type of truth I want to share. I love this country. But when I travel, I find that I love pretty much every country. When I go to Guatemala, I love Guatemala. I go to Canada, I love Canada. When I go to Mexico, I love Mexico. When I go to England, I love England. And I will say this, that India, for some reason, holds the most special place in my heart. For India values what I value the most. The most, this depth of spirituality. This depth of spirituality. And so again, I will ask you, what is it that rules you? If you just take a moment and reflect, what are the things that rule you? Is it the truth that rules you? Is it desire? Is it confusion? Is it entities, outside forces? Is it politics? Is it fear? Is it religion or dogma? Is it YouTube's algorithm? Like sometimes that's the thing that rules us. Literally the TikTok algorithm. That's the thing that rules us. And at some point on the spiritual path, we have to wake up from all the scrolling and say, enough's enough. I'm following the truth. I'm taking charge of my life. I have authority and dominion over my body. I will not be addicted to anything. I won't be addicted to anything. Now, a moment ago, when I was having an issue with my blood sugar and feeling like I was addicted to getting something sweet in my body, so I could balance my blood sugar. And I looked over at little Doodles. For those of you who don't know, Doodles is my little puffball dog. He's like this big. And Doodles is a very special guy, but sometimes he is ruled by confusion. Sometimes there's multiple forces in us. And so Doodles, he has a nice shiny silver bowl. And if I put food in it, he will eat it. But sometimes, my mother doesn't like this, but sometimes I'll give him like the bowl that I eat out of. If there's a little bit of scraps in it, and I'll put it down there for him to eat it. And sometimes he gets really confused because he sees that there's food in that bowl, but there's something about that bowl that terrifies him, and he cannot stick his neck in there and eat it. I don't know what it is. I cannot figure it out, but he can eat out of his one silver bowl. If I mix things up and give him a different bowl, he cannot handle it. And he sits there licking his chops and barking at this bowl where he sees the food, but it's like it has a force field around it and he can't get into it. Now, again, if we turn this around to like a more serious note here, we might find something like this within us, that there is something we want, something we value, but for some reason we're having trouble accessing this thing. Now, for many of us, now I'm going to take the metaphor and make it a little heavier. We have a heart and we want to connect with our heart, and our heart is so beautiful, so utterly beautiful. But we have a mind, and we live in our mind. And our mind tells us don't go into the heart because there's feelings there. And those feelings may overwhelm you. They may cause you to cry. They may make you feel vulnerable. But if you want to get to know your heart, the truth of your heart, you have to be willing to walk through that force field of fear. You must be willing to walk through it, to face it, to feel those feelings, to discover what's underneath the pain. If you want to find the beauty that you are, this compassion that you are, this immense love that you are, you can't be like Doodles. You can't be afraid of what's in that bowl. You can't be afraid. We have to be courageous enough to stick our neck, to stick our consciousness into our heart and see what's actually there. Is this something I actually need to be afraid of? Or am I willing to breathe, to feel, to open and experience this absolute beauty, this absolute divinity, which is my very own nature, So thank you for letting me humor you. The story about my friend Doodles. Again, no idea what it is about that bowl. It's all any different kind of bowl I give him, he loses his mind. Cannot handle it. And Buster, who's Doodle's little friend, Buster just sticks his face in there and eats up all the food. Poor Doodles. I have to tell Buster, stop, save some for Doodles. Okay. Johan is writing, I'm ruled by the notifications in this chat. Yeah, we can all stop the chatting. But I'm glad, we're having a little fun here. Here Don writes, I think I've had countless Doodles moments in my life. Why am I afraid of this email, software, new piano keyboard, new route for walking? Yeah. And it's, our brain, our psychological minds are hardwired to repeat habits, and we'll have a subtle fear about trying something new. Because I imagine, I have a little girl, and she's a little bit Hawaiian. Her mom's more Hawaiian, and then my wife's mom is even more Hawaiian. And then her grandma was born in Kauai at a sugarcane field. And my little girl, we were doing a report on Hawaii. So we were typing in facts about Hawaii. And Hawaii are these islands, the most remote islands in the world, I believe, way out in the Pacific Ocean. And if you imagine being the first people who started getting in a little canoe, paddling out into that big ocean. Now, some of those people, they're like, I want to see what's on the other side of that ocean. Some of those people died. Perhaps a lot of people died. And a small amount of them, somehow or another, and they got on the trade winds or the right currents, they ended up in Hawaii. And those are the fortunate ones. But hardwired into our consciousness is this little defense mechanism that says, don't try anything new because you might die. And there's a truth to it. It's much more true in the olden days. We didn't have easy access to water. We didn't have easy access to food. If you might wandered out and, visited a warring tribe, you might have gotten yourself in a little bit of trouble. You might have gotten your self cut in half, literally. Literally. Might have gotten yourself eaten up by a mountain lion, different kind of lion. So hardwired into our mind is something that says, don't try anything new. But part of you having spiritual authority and power is for you to have the clarity to look at a situation, see, well, is this thing actually dangerous? Like, is feeling into my heart, is exploring the nature of my consciousness in the space of my heart actually dangerous? Is forgiving, letting go of the past, actually dangerous? Now, discernment may tell you that it's good not to repeat, like if someone hurt you greatly, say physically, the discernment may tell you, let's not do business with that person again. Let's have boundaries with that person. I may not want to live with that person, so I may need boundaries and not want to do any business with them. But can I do that and forgive them so that I don't have to carry the burden of that pain with me for the rest of my life? And so as we're investigating the space of the heart, from a place of spiritual authority and a spiritual autonomy, it's the willingness to come into your heart, even if even if your egoic nature is telling you, no, it's too much. But in order for you to heal, in order for you to awaken, we have to be in touch with our power. We have to choose to be willing to be with that which is difficult. In fact, if we are never able to have any spiritual authority or power, we'll never grow. We'll never grow. We'll never awaken. We'll be stuck, stunted, literally. And so at some point on the path, we say it doesn't matter how it feels. If we want to be awake, we have to be willing to be open with everything. Whether it feels wonderful, whether it feels terrific, blissful, whether we're like, oh my God, there's a lot of pain here, a lot of pain, a lot of pain. Are we willing to embrace it all? The love, the bliss, the spaciousness, and the freedom, and the heartache, and the sadness, the despair. Can we open to it with a sense of clarity, the strength of Buddha nature, with an all-loving heart? Can we open to the fullness of our experience and not turn away? Not turn away. And so anyways, I know this being hungry for something and afraid of it at the same time very well. Yeah, that's it. It's an interesting thing. And, sometimes the mind is just utterly divided. And it's in those moments of division that we have the choice. Am I going to take the higher road? Am I going to listen to the voice of truth? Am I going to do that which is healing, that which is liberating? Am I going to have faith in my strength and my divinity? Or am I going to have faith in my egoic nature and the force of habit? And the force of habit. Now I'm going to say something a little silly today. I used to do a lot of building for my teacher, and And so I'm proficient, like in all the power tools. And I got out my old Hitachi framing gun the other day. That's a nail gun. And so the way a nail gun works is if you pull the trigger, no nail comes out. But if you put the head of it down, like on a board, and then you pull the trigger, because the head is collapsed, there's a safety mechanism, it'll shoot out a nail. But it's not like a regular gun. If you just pull the trigger and it'll shoot nails. It has to be, pressed down on this is going to be my board, press down on the board, then you pull the trigger and it shoots out a nail. So anyways, I was up framing the roof today, and the hot sun there. And, I grabbed my gun, and, it makes a sound. It goes pop-pum, pop-pum, like when it shoots a nail out. And I grab the gun, and sometimes when you grab it, you kind of hold the trigger. But again, like unless it's pushed in, the safety mechanism on the head's pushed in, it won't shoot a nail. I just grabbed the gun, and I heard the noise, pop-pum. I thought, that's kind of funny. And then I pulled the trigger again, and I heard pop-pum. And then I pulled it again, I heard pop-pum. And I realized that that the safety mechanism was broken, and it was just like a regular gun now. It's just shooting nails all over the place. And so again, like in the olden days, like with my old mind that I had pre-awakening, if I heard that sound when I pulled that trigger, would have terrified me. Like I would have had a fit, like, oh my God, it'd be like, shooting bullets out all over the place. And today, because there's just this great peace with me, here I was in this dangerous situation and was having no reaction at all, zero reaction. It actually took me a moment for like my awake awareness to catch up with my practical awareness. Like, oh, this is a dangerous situation. And so sometimes our mind tries to protect us from spiritual awakening. Sometimes our mind tries to hold on because it's afraid, that we might, become drunk on emptiness, drunk on freedom, like a spiritual dummy, where we're just kind of floating in the world, not really, egoically aware of the dangers of life. And so the mind, sometimes it holds on to it, tries to protect you from being this vast space of awareness. Mind tries to protect you through repeating fear, repeating the story of fear, trying to scare you with fear, so that you don't, end up, someone who is fearless. Because it could be a little bit dangerous. Like it was dangerous for this fella. He chose to be fearless and live in the truth. And the mob, they ended his life. Ended horribly for Joan of Arc as well. It's ended horribly for many great awakened beings. But at some point, we have to ask ourselves, am I going to try to preserve my life at all costs? Or is my life about the truth? Is my life about spiritual freedom at all costs? What is your truth? What is your life about? I saw something popped up in my YouTube feed. It was like someone making a survey. It was like something like, do you want to live forever? Like if you could, like, would you like just to live forever? At what length would you be willing to go to prolong your life here on planet Earth? Like, to what length? Like right now, some people are trying to, spend tens of thousands of dollars, maybe hundreds of $1,000s to make their face, like try to freeze their face in time. Now, I love Kenny Rogers. He had some real hits, but you saw his poor face by the time he died. He had so much plastic surgery, that it looked not right. It looked not right. Like, to what degree are we going to hold on to this life? To what degree? What degree are we going to hold on to this body? I'm a big fan of treating the body with love and respect and good, wholesome, organic foods and all that kind of stuff. But to what degree are we going to sell our soul? Are we going to prostitute our own nature, our divinity? So that we can live in fear? So that we can live in fear? Or are we going to choose to live the highest life, the most truthful life, the most honest life? Like, what is it that you value? Does fear have authority over your life? Does how you look have authority over your life? Does money have authority over your life? Does your boss have authority over your life? Me, I couldn't handle a boss. The only boss I could handle was my teacher. And then, of course, God. I like the ultimate boss. That's the boss that I'm going to bow before. That's the boss that I'm going to bow before. So anyways, if anyone has a question, you can bring it forward. If you emailed a question, I did not get it. I'm just still so far behind in my emails. Okay, here. I believe it's Lucas. It says Nod, Lucas, or is it Lucas Nod? Sometimes I don't know if I avoid something by eating or if I avoid something by not eating, if that makes sense. Yeah, well, the psychology of eating, the samsara of eating is immense. Now, I can tell you, I've done both. There's been times in my life when to numb out the pain, I would eat and eat and eat. I've never been that big of an eater, though, so I can only take that dance so far. But most people do this with sugar. Like we eat a lot of sugar to numb out, some of the pain. And, it's a common thing. Like in Buddhism, we talk about these hungry ghosts that we have in our bellies. Basically, it's an insatiable desire. It's a big wound. It feels like a bottomless pit. And so a lot of people, like when they go through a breakup, they might sit on the couch, and instead of feeling the sadness of the breakup and actually grieving, they sit down and they eat a tub of ice cream every day. They just keep filling that hole, that void with food. And of course, like the nature of a hungry ghost is it can never be filled. And so what happens is we tend to go like this. We tend to put on the pounds and get bigger and bigger and bigger from trying to fill the hungry ghost. Now, I've done this other one too. Avoid something by not eating. Yeah, so some people, like they have pain within them, and they try to control that pain. Because they're trying to control it and repress it so much, they just stop eating. Like the control mechanism takes over and they just start starving themselves. Begin to starve themselves. And, it's an interesting thing. The way I teach is, if you're hungry, like if your body is hungry, if you need food, eat. If you don't need food, don't eat. We don't eat just to fill the bottomless gap. We don't eat in order to soothe our pain. And we don't not eat. We don't starve ourselves as a way of making ourselves suffer for our sins. Like none of those are the truth. The truth is we eat good, wholesome food to nourish the body. That's the truth. And if we have feelings within us that need to be soothed, we must learn about compassion. We must learn about kindness. We must learn about forgiveness. And so many people soothe through eating. But the proper way to soothe is through touch and through deep breathing. The you holding you, you embracing you, you loving you, you being with you, you listening to you, you breathing deeply into the pain and letting it shake, letting it empty out into the spaciousness and peace that's here. Letting the pain be held in a space of love. This is how we soothe. Okay. I see 3 questions here. Looking at the time, I ask that each question is clear and direct. Please and thank you. Let's hear from Terry.
Hi, Craig.
Okay.
Hi, everybody. I had an amazing experience last Wednesday, but it was also terrible, but beautiful. Right before your meditation, like for a half an hour, the energy already started happening.
Yeah.
And then it was a great meditation. Thank you. And then 5 minutes later, I went to the kitchen to prepare food for people. And my husband comes into the kitchen and has this like deathly serious look and says, I have something really serious has just happened. So brace yourself. Your 4 chickens were just killed by a coyote. And I raised these chickens from chicks, and we love these chickens so much.
Yeah.
It has its own personality. And so as he said that center of silent peace and love just came to the fore, like massively. And I was just feeling the stillness. And at the same time, human Terry was like, should I be panicked? What should I be doing here? Because it was a confusion, because the silence got really big. And so then I went out with him to see, he went to show me the bodies. He had them in a big box there. And as I saw it, I was overcome with gratefulness.
Yeah.
Instead of, I don't know, I just thought it would be a more negative thing, and it just became a beautiful thing. And I touched each chicken and said, thank you.
Yeah.
And I know they're just chickens, but it was tearing my heart out. And at the same time, it was like the love in my heart just like opened bigger than it could be to embrace this horrible situation, right? It's just got bigger.
Yeah.
And then that whole night, the energy in my body was insane. I couldn't sleep. Neither of us could sleep. And I was awake for 48 hours and stuff. But the whole experience helped me to see that it's like, the more your heart breaks, the more strength you have, the more it's like it opens. and you have more you can take more. I don't know how to say it, but it was really beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very beautiful. That's very beautiful. Well, thank you, Terry. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. And God bless the chickens. God bless the chickens. God bless the chickens. That's one of the things that death does. Is death, it can be a great awakener. It can be a great awakener. And don't ever say they're just chickens. I mean, chickens have some chickens have a very wonderful, exquisite consciousness. And I've been in those situations too, where I don't even know what got into the chicken coop, and you wake up and we had 20 something dead chickens once, and it's like a bloodbath. It's like you get a little bobcat in there, mountain lion or coyote or fox, badger, and they can do some damage. But it's important to know that all living beings have souls. So the chickens, they get to go to heaven. They get to go to heaven. They might come back as like sometimes if the soul is really high, like they might not come back as a chicken. They might come back as a little dog, and it kind of works its way through the dog incarnations. And then it might, as it matures, become, step into, a human form, and so on and so forth. And who knows, what's next. But I had a little boy once, and he had a real special chicken. And he had this little sledding hill, and the chicken would jump in the sled with him and go down the hill. Just loved to sled with him and follow him around the yard everywhere. And like him and this chicken were real good friends. And it's just like sweet as could be. It's like this one little hen was just like, its consciousness was so pure. And and then other ones, like I can remember a rooster, and I finally told the neighbor to come over and come eat this rooster. We're vegetarians, but this one rooster, he was so mean. Every time I walked out there, he would chase all my kids and would spur. Like it almost spurred my little boy's eye out. And I said, enough's enough with him. So I sent him to chicken heaven. But it's a crazy thing. Like when you're faced with death, and even with that, like when we chose to end that chicken's life, and a neighbor came over and chopped its head off, we said a little prayer, but it really brings you into reality, the immediacy of death. It brings you into reality. If we don't think about it, but rather if we stay with the experience directly, if we feel it directly, if we need to grieve, we grieve, we let the emotions flow. But when we're in the here and now, we see how precious life is, how beautiful life is. How precious, like for people who eat chickens, like to see that this is a life, this is a being, and to be radically thankful and grateful. But so many of us, we're not connected to our food, we're not connected to each other, and then we're not connected to life and death, life or death. We live in some reality where death doesn't exist. But death is a great awakener. It shows us the beauty of life, and that at any moment, like, we are not in charge. We're not in charge. That there's something else in charge. It gives us an opportunity to reflect on the beauty, the intimacy, the immediacy of our fellow creatures here on planet Earth. And so beautiful. Well, God bless those little chickens. God bless them, and may they be received with open arms into their heaven realm. Yeah, beautiful. Beautiful. Yeah, and see, one of my chickens loved being held. She was the boss of them all. Yeah. And that's the thing is, again, like, I think that humans are the only ones that are conscious, but the more awake you are, you see that all of life is conscious. And some of it more so than others, or some conscious in different ways than others. We see that all of life is made of the same substance. Okay. Let's see. We're going to hear from Matthew. Matthew, are you here?
Hello.
Hey, Matthew. Good to see you.
Yeah, great to see you too. I'm in I'm sorry, that cat is 1 second.
Okay. Consciousness of a kitty.
Sorry, I had to handle a cat there.
That's okay.
Yeah, I'm in great need of help.
What's going on?
I am in this really intense and deep clench. And it's been this way for the last 3 days. And it's getting to the point where it's just kind of like driving me crazy. And I've, all the ways of being with it. I'm just exhausted.
Yeah.
I'm at my end with it in a sense. It's broken me a bit, or it's breaking me. I'm not there, but like, it's like, and I don't know what to like, I just like had to bring this forward, like
Yeah.
I need a lot of help.
Yeah. And so is there a fear about letting this thing break?
That's a good question. I guess, yeah, the rage underneath it.
Oh, okay. So if you want to be free, you have to be willing to feel the rage.
It's a very hard one for me. I don't feel like I've become safe with rage. It just gets really, that's the one I freeze around the most. It's like, it just gets really stuck.
Well, what's the worst thing that you would do? Like if all this rage came out?
I just like pull that tree out of the ground and like throw it like a spear.
I'd love it. I'd love it. I'd love it.
But feels like authentic, just like rip something out of the ground, just fucking throw it.
Yeah. Yeah. And so basically what your body's telling you is there's a lot of energy here that wants to be thrown, that wants to explode, that wants to flow.
So much energy and it's just like stuck.
So I'm going to encourage you to trust that it's safe to be volcanic.
I just haven't been able to tap into that.
Yeah, well, I mean, it looks like you're tapping into something. You're dancing all over the place. Looks
Lot
like
of
there's
energy.
something here. And so that the place within you, like you're telling me you can't tap into it. You just gave this beautiful vision.
Yeah.
Ripping a tree out of the ground and throwing it like a caveman.
I'm just so mad.
So what?
I'm just mad. I'm just so mad.
Good. And so can you allow yourself to be mad?
I've been trying for the last 3 days, but it just kind of, and I'm just,
So that gripping, so there's something, so you said there's madness here, there's anger here, there's rage here.
Yeah.
But there's something that's gripping onto it. Why?
Yeah. It's afraid. It's fear. It's like fear. Yeah.
Of?
Power.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm afraid of power. And so you have a choice to listen to this voice and just keep yourself repressed.
Right.
or to open to this power and see what comes.
Right.
And again, like, what are we talking about here? We're talking about spiritual power. I mean, ultimately, but on the surface, it might be the power of rage. But again, like, are you gonna go kill somebody or anything?
No.
No. And so do you
Something
trust
in me,
yourself?
like something in me would just love to, like, you know, destroy worlds.
Well,
Like obviously that won't. I'm not gonna. But something, there's that kind of energy that's just like, you know.
yeah. And so can you let it come? And can you witness it? And just let it flow through your consciousness and see. Like, to see what this thing is. It's going to require that you give yourself permission to see what's here, to feel what's here, to experience what's here.
Yeah.
And again, like, if you have a good spiritual heart, there'll be a lot of energy,
Yeah.
a lot of chaos, maybe a lot of imagery. Again, like the Buddha under the Bodhi tree, he had to sit with this rage and just let it come. And sometimes it just comes and makes a big story, a big fantasy.
Yeah.
And then eventually it'll burn itself out.
Yeah.
But the difference is you'll be left with the feeling of immensity in a space of openness,
Yeah.
instead of a feeling of repressed immensity,
Right.
state of closeness, which,
Fuck, I know, that's torture.
yeah. And so like if you, like, from a place of compassion, if you feel into the one who's controlling and you ask that one, what do you need?
The freedom to be me was like the very first thing that just kind of,
The freedom to be me.
yeah.
The freedom to be me.
Yeah.
And so what does that mean in relationship to this anger and all this feeling?
He just says he wants to be big.
So the one who's controlling wants to be big.
I don't know what the fuck's going on.
So if the one who's controlling just wants to be big, then be big. Then be big. But the one who's controlling, like, he might need a little help, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
He might need a little help letting go. So that maybe that's the question to ask yourself. The one who's controlling, what would be helpful for him? Like, what would aid?
He just does not have PC answers right now. You know, he doesn't have pretty spiritual answers.
So I don't ever ask for PC anything. Like, I hope I don't disappoint anyone, but I'm not really a
No,
PC
he
kind of
wants.
guy.
Okay, let's try it. Let me try again. This is what happens. I get stuck with this energy. I'm like so fucking stuck with it. You know, I can't communicate with it. I can't hear it deeply. I'm so disconnected from it.
Well, what did he say just a moment ago?
Which part?
The one who's controlling.
Yeah.
We asked, what would be helpful?
Yeah. To be me.
To be you.
Yeah.
Okay, so the part of you that's holding on, what's going to help him in letting go?
Probably to cry.
Probably a cry. Yeah. And so can we start with that? Can we start feeling into the sadness that's here?
Yeah.
And or the anger? And either way, to trust that it's okay to let those energies flow.
Right. Yeah.
Trust that it's okay to let these energies flow. Trust that you don't have to do it perfectly. You don't have to be PC. You know, if you have an angry, rageful fit, that's going to be closer to the truth than you keeping all this stuck within you.
Yeah. Yeah. He's really liking the attention from the group. he really just wanted attention tonight, like really bad, you know, from
Yeah.
other people like this in this kind of container.
Yeah. Yeah. So he's wanting someone to hold some space
Yeah.
while he cries, while he has some energy,
Yeah.
to see that I can be a hot mess and I'll still be loved.
Yeah.
And I'll still be loved.
Yeah. It's been really difficult just being with these big energies alone because they
Yeah.
just feel so big. And I just, my system is just unconsciously,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. Well, that's, the first thing I wanted to ask you was, what's your relationship with God? And can you see that God is here now?
I feel, yes, just a very deep relationship with God.
Yeah. And so this idea of being alone, we need to really look at that. Am I alone or am I with God right now?
Oh, thank you for
Do I
saying that.
do I trust that God will be with me if I get really angry? If I get really angry, do I trust that God will be with me if I get really angry? If I get really sad? If I have a lot of feeling? If I'm controlling? If I'm releasing? If I'm uncontrolled? Like, do I trust that God is here with me? Space is here, light is here, peace is here, love is here. Yeah.
Yeah, I
So,
appreciate that.
yeah, you keep opening to this.
Okay.
And we're just, the work is the same. We breathe, we feel, we open and experience.
Yeah.
Just letting it all come. At the end
Thank
of the day, I don't care if it's bliss or rage, it's all energy.
Right.
It's all energy.
Right.
Some we label good, some we label bad. It's all energy.
Yeah. Yeah, I really needed this.
Yeah. Good to be with you, Matthew.
Thanks for the help.
Yeah, of course. Much love. Yeah. I'll tell everyone a funny story. Once I was building a retreat house for my teacher, and it was a 3-story house, and it started raining on my lumber, and when it rains on lumber, a lot of times the boards warp. And so, like, you build the wall, and then it starts to warp. If so you want to hurry up and get the roof on it. But anyways, like, all my boards and the walls were like warping and bowing, and they're being wavy gravy, and my teacher kept asking me, like, to fix a wall, to adjust a wall. He's putting a lot of pressure on me. He was testing me a bunch, and I kept making these mistakes, and guys weren't showing up to work. My people who are supposed to help me. Then there was another guy in the Sangha who he built a lot of houses, and he'd show up and tell me what to do all the time, but then he'd disappear and like never be around for the work, and he'd always just show up and tell me I was doing it wrong. And so anyways, I was getting really stressed out, and one day, I don't even know what happened. I tried to frame something up, and the boards were all bowed, and so it just worked. And I was like, God, I got to rebuild this wall. And in wall framing, you have a bottom plate and then 2 top plates and the studs in between. I can remember this real like warped stud, and it was just wrong. And so your choice is to cut it out of there with a sawzall. And you cut the nails, and the stud drops out of there. Or you can take your hammer and you can beat it out of there. Basically, like, you knock the hell out of it so hard that try to picture this. You have 2 nails coming up from below, and like, if this is the stud, I don't know if you really picture that, but you just hit the bottom of it so hard that it just like blows out. And so I was beating the hell out of this stud, trying to get it to move. And it wasn't really moving. The nails were holding it. So I flipped the hammer around so you got the claw side of the hammer. And so the claw side was a little bit sharper. I started beating the hell out of this stud with the claw side of the hammer until that stud turned to like shreds, like I was just obliterating the stud. And I stopped, like when I saw the stud, drop, and just like the way I was holding the hammer, the claw side, I realized, oh my God, I am a lunatic here, like a raging lunatic. Just like all this energy, all this rage. It's probably a bad day with my former wife too. She's probably giving me hell about something, but I lost my mind. I lost my mind. And I can remember I just let the hammer drop. And I looked up at this big, beautiful sky above me. And there was just this recognition, oh, look, God is here. God is here with this poor fella Craig, who's so stressed out, so overwhelmed, so struggling. And it was just like, I just like fell to my knees. Like, God is here with all of me. My angry self, my vengeful self, my rageful self, with my good meditating self as well. But God is here too, because we're losing our mind. And if we can wake up and realize, like even in the worst moments of our life, most confused moments, the most violent moments, that God is here, that peace is here, that space is here. And we can step out of that illusion, that we were in just a couple moments ago. We can step into the truth. And sometimes it doesn't mean that we immediately go into some realm of transcendence or bliss. Sometimes it means we fall down on the ground and we cry even more. We see that it's really not that we're angry. It's really that we're deeply sad, because I cannot control life. I can't control my experience. Can't control my ex-wife. I can't control my kids. I can't control this lumber. I can't control my teacher and all his needs. I can't control the guy showing up to work. I can't control the weather. I can't control anything. And this is what death does. Like, when you get the experience with the chickens, all of a sudden they're gone. It's what life does eventually, is it breaks us open. It breaks us open. And the point of spiritual awakening is not to be a hot mess. But the point of spiritual awakening is the recognition that there is a human self here that cannot control. And that this human self, it needs to unload. It needs to empty out. It can't keep everything within it, because if it keeps everything within it, we go crazy. We go mad. So sometimes we need to give ourselves permission to be like Christ in the Garden of Gethsemane, and to fall on our knees, to have a good cry. Say, Lord, why have thou forsaken me? Why have all my friends left me? Why has everyone betrayed me? And cry it all out. And cry it all out. And through the tears, we come into a state of clarity where we see that God is here in the beginning, in the middle, and in the end. So one permanent thing in our life is this presence of divinity. One permanent thing is this presence of divinity. And so anyways, good to be with you, Matthew. Okay. Oh my gosh. I didn't see the time. Okay. I'm sorry, Jan and Don and Tyler. I think it's past my time here. So I'll see y'all. Maybe I'll see y'all next week. Maybe I'll see you on Wednesday. Maybe I'll see you sometime soon. Hopefully I'll see y'all on retreat. So much love to each of you. Open, open, open. Forever open. And a reminder, if anyone needs a scholarship for the retreat, just contact me through the website, and I'll do my best to get you taken care of. So much love to each of you. Good night, everyone. Bye.